Hey Bob, Rick Angelicola. I wanted to show you a pattern that I came up with yesterday after tying a bunch of different patterns that are out there and then playing with some of the materials that I have here. And this would be a combination of actually fly tying materials and then some stuff that's non-traditional that I pick up here and there. So here's the pattern. Okay, this one's got a little bit of chartreuse. Oops, sorry. And these things here are called EP fibers. Enrico something or other, an Italian dude, came up with these years ago. Super fine. What's nice about these is they hold their shape, they got good movement, and they are translucent when they're wet. Okay, this stuff here is that's a product you can get. It's called lateral scales. See here, you buy it in quantity, and then you can buy 3D eyes, which I have here. This material here is just some scrap material that comes with another item that I actually meant to have in front of me here, which is here it is. Okay, this is just a piece of braid material. Okay, and on the inside they pack a rope in there. You can kind of see it here. Okay, and when I took the rope out and I cut it, I saw the fibers were very shiny and kind of a very nice stiffness to them. See them here? So I decided to use them for the head on this fly. And I've got some hot glue, right, which is a non-traditional fly tying material. And then this is a saltwater hook, a number 2. So this thing is about maybe 3.5, 3.25 inches long. So I'm going to show you real quick how to tie this, just so you get a sense. This is not, there's a couple advanced techniques, at least one in here anyways, which is a loop, which I'll show you. So hang tight, I'll set up and be right back. Okay, I put the hook in the vise. It's a number 2 hook. Vise holds it really tight, all right? And I'm going to go ahead and start with my line here, my thread here, as soon as I find it. Okay, thread. This is a Veevus thread. This is a gel spun thread, super strong. I mean, literally, this little piece here is probably 15 pounds test. Okay, if we look at it in fishing terms, but it's super thin. Okay, and it really holds the materials tight. It's slippery itself as a material, so it'll slide around the hook if you don't fasten it properly. But the unique thing about it is it's so tough that it's even hard to cut. So you try to cut it with scissors, you have to have really sharp ones to do it. Conventional scissors will actually have a hard time with these. Okay, so what I did is I locked in my line, my thread, I started it and I went back. Typically where you want to go back to a tail section is somewhere near the barb of the hook, which is right there. Okay, so if you look, that's hanging. Well, you can't see it from there, but you can see the barb, right? You can see how that thread is hanging right at that barb point. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab me some of these EP fibers. Okay, I've got them both in white, and I have them in chartreuse, and I have them in silver. So this time I'm going to go with silver instead of chartreuse, and so we'll do a different color this time. So I'm going to just pull a small amount, really small, from this deal, because I'm going to be doubling them up. Okay, you see them here? So I'm going to, actually I'm not even going to double them up. This is about the perfect amount. So in fly tying, you want to be sparse, okay? Rarely do you want to put a lot of materials. So that's one of the first things if you learn that up front, you'll be a better tie flyer right off the bat. That's the most common mistake, is using too much materials. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of this stuff here at the end. And the idea is to get a nice taper here. Okay, so this is going to be our silver. Now I'm going to get some white, which I have here. It's going to be, these are a little stickier. It's a really interesting, it can become, if you don't handle these properly, you can get a big mess here. So I'm going to pull these off and take this stuff off. I'm going to double it up. Okay, this is the belly of the fly, right? Just like the belly of the fish is always lighter. Again, we'll start to pull a little bit of a taper into this, okay? So there you go. We got the belly, and then we've got the top of the minnow, right? What you see here is silver, okay? So I'm going to match it up size-wise to the lure or the fly that I have here. So to get a sense, going to be right about here. And then this is going to get tied right on top of this hook. Okay? So watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to bring this around, not putting any pressure on it. I'm just letting it drop. And I'm going to come around again twice. And I'm staying even with my point down there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up. Because if you pull from the side, the material is going to twist around. And you don't want to do that. I'm going to pull from the side, and I'm going to come down again. I'm sorry, pull up rather, not from the side. Okay, pull up, and I'm going to come down the shank just a little bit, just to ensure that we are, because you know those saltwater fish, man, they got teeth usually, and one tooth can really shred a fly. So I want you to see here. The way I did this, see how the silver remains up on top? That's important, all right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my scissors, and I am going to cut this off at an angle so that it's tapered. Then I'm going to come forward, and I'm going to, tight turns, I'm going to get this very well secured. Now what I like to do with my saltwater flies is I like to use a little bit of super glue just to make sure we got a good connection to the steel underneath. Okay, so that's not going to come out now. All right, now that's done. All right. So that's that whole rear section of the fly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back while the super glue is still wet, all the way back. I'm not going to go back onto the fur, right back to that first tie-in, and I'm going to create this loop. Okay, this is going to be a dubbing loop. I'll show you. This is an advanced technique, but I'm going to create this loop. Okay. Now this loop is, I'm going to bring my line up, and I am going to do a half hitch and tie it off so that I don't have to worry about it. And I've got this little guy right here where I can store my bobbin and get it out of the way. Okay? You with me, man? All right, I know this is a lot, but anyways, so there we have that, right? And we see we've got this loop now. It's just a loop that I made out of the fly tying thread. And I'm going to take this stuff here is wax, okay? And it's because this is so slippery, it'll never hold any materials. So what I do is take this wax and I just try to coat, so daggum slippery, it's even hard to do that, the inside of this thread, so that when I put my materials in there, you remember I showed you the rope material earlier, And so I pre-cut it and I combed it out. Okay, and I created these sort of hairs, okay, these fibers. Okay, I'm going to put those in there. And I'm going to put those in there. And I'm going to keep going. This sort of forms a chenille. If you've ever seen chenille, you'll see it's kind of like a fuzzy yarn when we're done doing what we need to do here. And I'm going to keep going. I'm going to pause it for a minute because I got to put a few in here, and that's going to just, be 20 meg of tape. So stand by. I'm going to come back on, and this will be all ready to go. Hold on. Okay, if you can see, I've got this in, right? All these fibers are just stacked inside that loop. And I'm going to I've got a thing at the end of this. You can't see it in here, but I'll spin it. It's just a weight. And it's got a little hook that grabs in the center of that loop. And when I pull it, it's going to spin this material. Okay? It starts to create a rope. Okay? I'm trying to show you here. All right? And so then what we're going to do, and I'm going to do it a little more because this line, actually, the downside of using this line, this thread here, is that it doesn't have enough mass to twist all the way up here the same way that it's twisting down here. So if it was a little bit thicker line, it would be better for this purpose. But again, I'm using this line because it's strong. So I try to comb this out as best I can. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to wrap this around the shaft. So I try to pull the fibers in one direction like this so that I don't go over the top of each other. And then this is a rotating vise. Okay, and I recommend if you're going to do this that you get one of these right off the bat. A lot of beginners don't. They just spend less money and they get a standard fixed vise, and then it's a little tougher. You can still do this, but you're going to be wrapping it around instead of moving the vise around in circles. So again, it's very tough to get all of these fibers back, just given what I'm working with here. But if you take your time, and every half a turn, this thread, because it's twisted, it wants to spin. While you're putting it on, it wants to twist back around as you put pressure on it. Okay. Of course, you got to be careful. This hook will impale you. But you get kind of used to it. You learn how to avoid it. Okay. So I'm just going to keep wrapping. Might not be long enough, but in that case we'll just make it longer. I'll do another loop and continue it on, so you can always recover if you don't have it right. All right, so you see what I'm doing. I'm going to pause this, and then I'm just going to keep going and then not waste the tape. Hang on. All right, you can see I made it all the way to the front of the hook. I didn't have to add any more. So that's good. Just kind of ended up perfect. So this is my loop, right? See it over the top? I got this over the top of the hook. Now this is my original tying thread, right? And when you're tying flies, this thread here that you have, you never take it off until you're done. It's one continuous loop of thread. So I'm going to go over the top of that once, twice. All right, now I've got it captured. Okay, so I got pressure on this. I got it captured. I can now come in front of it one time, and now that sucker's locked in. All right, so I can let this go now. You see that? And that's just the remainder of the loop. So I'm going to cut that off. And then I'm going to finalize the lock in here by pulling all my material back and forming a little head Okay, and this is the end of for now for tying. I'm gonna reattach this one time, which is non-traditional. Normally you'd keep it hanging here. You know what? Which I'll do just to stay within the. So I do a half hitch, lock it in place, and can I leave it on? Can I leave it on? Let me think here. Now, because I need to show you some stuff. So in this case, I'm gonna cut it. And this is called a whip finish. Okay, this is the way you lock up a thread in on a fly. Okay, now that's in there, right? And before, see how tough that stuff is? You can't cut it on the first time. Okay, so now look what I got here. I've got all this mess, right? These fibers. And so what I'm going to do, when you compare it to this, doesn't look exactly the same, right? Because this one's been trimmed up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to comb it backwards to get all the fibers to stick up, and you can see it's like looks like a bottle brush, right? You can kind of look in there, okay? And if you remember, those are just fibers that I stuck between two pieces of thread and twisted. So you kind of get it to where you want it, and now we're going to shape this. This is going to be the head and the upper part of the body. I'm going to take my scissors and just do my initial cuts. I got these round scissors. I'm gonna leave it. I try to leave it a little longer in the back so that it can blend into the other fibers. So another advantage of this rotating vise, right? You see it's starting to take some shape, right? So. And here, I'm going to say, again, less is more when you're doing this trimming stuff. We have a tendency to trim more than we should to try to get it perfect, and then we sort of take the mass out of the front of the fly. Which, okay, now, the thing about a fish is, these kind of fish anyways, they got a thin profile, right? So see how this is natural form, and then here it is. See how much thinner this is? The way we're going to do that is we're going to take these fibers and kind of part them right here, and we're going to pull half of them up and half of them down, right? So we're taking them away from the side. So we're starting to thin this profile out, and it gives us more mass at the top and bottom. See that? Okay, kind of get it where you think it's pretty good. Okay, and we're going to do some more trimming as we go on once we develop this deal here. Okay, so the next thing is these Silversides have this very, very thick lateral line. That's what this is. It runs down about half of the fish. Okay, and the back end of the fish is translucent. Anchovies it goes all the way down, okay, to the end, farther down the fish. But what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and attach. We're going to do it with thread first to hold it in. That's right here. Piece of this lateral thread, the lateral deal here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my line back on, my thread. Sorry, I keep calling it the line. So you gotta tie it over itself to lock it in. Otherwise, this thread will slip out. All right, cut my tagging off, and now I'm going to take my lateral scale. And I'm gonna tie it right in on the side. Okay, once you loop it over, you put this where you want it. A couple turns just to get it locked in place. Okay. Now, like everything else I explained, is going to have a tendency to want to get pulled over the fly when you're pulling the thread tight. So you manage it and keep it in the center. Okay, and then instead of getting a brand new one, I know where this is going to be lengthwise. I want it to be about right there. I'm going to cut it off with a little bit of a point. I'm going to flip this guy over. Now I'm on the other side. And I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to make sure it's either the same length or longer because I can cut it after, right? And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull my thread over, couple of wraps, tighten it up. Okay. All right. Now you see with the thread, it's going to want to pull or flip out, right? Pull out like this, see, because this is a different type of material. As you tighten it, it's going to want to go out. So what we're going to do, because we know these fish are tough with their teeth. I've got a heat gun here, a glue gun. See it? This is just a conventional glue gun. It's got a clear glue in it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bit. I can do this with the camera in a way here, and I'm going to just gotta watch out because it's super hot. I'm just going to put a line right down here, try to be as neat as I can. And then I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to pull it down right over that part of the thing, and I'm going to put it in the glue. Okay, now see how that puts that right down to the side of the fly, and it follows right sort of down in the lateral direction. You can adjust it a little. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Lift this up. Try to be really neat with this glue. Okay. And I'm going to pull this where I want it and then drop it down into the glue. Blowing it out a little just to help it dry. Okay, so now we got that glued down, right? Now we're going to get rid of these tag ends very quickly. Gone. Gone. And now I'm going to whip finish, and this will be all we'll do with the thread. 2, 3, 4. Okay, everything is secure there. We'll get rid of this, and then you'll see I'm going to put super glue on the tip of that head, which locks all those threads in place. All right, so now you look from the side. It's starting to turn into a fly. All right, now I've got these eyes. All right. Let's see here. All right, see this sheet of eyes? All kinds of sizes and colors, 3D. All right, I'm going to take the right size, I think is right here. I'm going to take one of these. I'm going to put some hot glue down here. And I'm going to try not to burn myself too bad. And drop that eye in place. And I got about 3 or 4 seconds to position it where I want it. Boom. Okay. Now we got an eyeball. Same thing here. Want to match what I'm doing here. Put my glue down. It's kind of a lot of glue. And I'm going to, normally I'd have my eye already ready because this glue, it stays warm for a bit, but it does immediately dry. So I've got this little sewing thing of my mom's that I like to use. It helps me think of her. She's passed on now, but she was a seamstress. So I use a lot of her sewing stuff to do this. All right, now we've got the eye in place, right? And so the eye, in my opinion, is really kind of exposed the way it is because of a fish gets its tooth under the edge of it, and it's not going to be too difficult to take it off. So then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take some more glue. I'm going to put it on the eye itself. I'm going to go down this line. Okay. Now here I wet my finger, and I kind of shape it. Okay? See that? Now I've got that done. I'll do the same thing on this side. Okay? Same thing. I'm going to shape it. Now, I think that eye is pretty protected. It's a nice clear glue, so it does not really affect the that lateral line, right? And so now look, we've got this. Take some of this light out of the picture here. Now we've got something that looks more like what we had earlier down here, right in green. And now we're going to just finish trimming up the head. Let's get some of this light out of here. Here we go. All right, so now I'm just going to do the final trimming. All right. Give him a little haircut. All right, a little bit underneath. Okay, and then I'm going to just try to just round it just a tad. This is an extra step. You don't really have to do this, but I just think it takes some of the sharpness away. And you'll notice these scissors are curved and they're specifically designed for shaping hair, deer hair, and that sort of thing, or these synthetic fibers. Okay, so look, there we have it. So we have two flies, one in chartreuse, one in gray, relatively the same, right? Little rounder head, I'll fix that. Now what I did here was I took a marker and I put the line on the top of his head because that matches the reality. There's always a little bit darker, right, darker color on the top of the fish. So I've got a little bag here. Got these markers here. I just keep them in a little bag. And I'll find a silver. See here? And I'm just going to take and gently color the top. Now this is an experimental fly, right? I mean, this is my pattern. I developed it. So this is really, when we fish it, it's going to be a test. And it may or may not perform, or it may or may not need some adjustment, right? We'll figure that out in the field. But here, now I'm just going to do this one thing and just around the top of his head just a little more. All right, I think we're good. All right, so there you have it. I'm going to take these, we'll put them side by side so you can see, right? So you see a little difference I made here. I went in here and I think that, you know, it needed to be, this needed to be longer to keep the shape of the minnow better. This, when we're pulling this through the water, this is going to compress a little. So it's going to look like a shiny silver translucent minnow with a very, very heavy lateral line. Okay, you see these are different lengths. So I'm going to cut this. And not that it really matters, right? Because the fish is only going to see this from one side or the other. I'm going to take this lateral line, the scale rather, and I'm going to just trim it to match the size. I can see the other one through it. Okay. Now they're even. All right, there you have it, man. I'm going to call this in your honor. I'm going to call this the Dorsch Diver. How's that? Is that how you say your last name? I hope it is. But anyways, there you go. All right, man. Later. Well, here, let me focus. Can I get a focus in on that real quick? Camera crew. Yeah, there they are. See? All right, man. Have a blessed day. Bye.